My name is Rehema
and I am a co-founder of Womanomics Africa in partnership and collaboration with my auspicious lady, Lebo Biko. Lebo, please wave your hand. Hope you can see her in your camera view, Lebo Biko.
Good morning.
Lebo Biko and I have been in business for quite a while. We actually met through women's organization back in the day, Business Women's Association of South Africa, I think in the late 2000s. And we've been stuck to each other, you know, committed to this idea of African women doing business with each other, doing business on the continent, and making moves. And so it is through that notion of being the change agents that we'd like to see that we founded a number of initiatives, one of which is Womanomics Africa. Womanomics Africa exists to connect African women with three things that we identified that the market could use a lot more of. And that connection is to information and insights, such as this session, that provide us with the kind of content that allows us to have tradable or commercial value, being able to translate it beyond the it's good to gather as women, but being able to take those insights and be able to transact with them. We also exist to connect African women to capacity building efforts. And part of what we've done in the last year is we've run a capacity building initiative supporting South African women to be able to do more trade with the US through our initiative of intra South Africa and US trade. We also exist, and this is an example of the ability and the opportunity around networking to foster stronger ecosystems. And those ecosystems allow us to access the kind of resources, tools, people that support our business growth. How did these Womanomics circles come up? It came up with an appreciation that, you know, whenever there are laws that are passed or there's a lot of gathering around, we're going to change this on the continent, it seems like women are on the back foot. And one of the things that we realized is that African women are traders. We've been doing trade for time immemorial, but when you're starting to look at the information and data as to how much trade African women are doing, the numbers don't quite disaggregate in that way. And we have felt that there is an opportunity for us to chart the direction and to create specific environments where we can identify what that trade opportunity looks like, where women are trading, but as well to leverage the ability of convening in order to disseminate information and to foster collaboration. So we started with these circles pre-COVID, and post-COVID, we've decided to ramp it up. And our ramping it up is a view to make a convening practical. It's a view of us connecting with each other as African women beyond the academic, beyond what is written in the news, and connecting one-on-one to get greater and richer country insights. And here you have it, ladies. We have the first of the series that we are looking to host, which are really looking at country focus. We look at a country, we speak to the people in the country, we get a sense of what kind of protocols are in place, what kind of businesses are currently being undertaken, what are the collaboration opportunities, what are the realities of doing business. And I think we are excited. And this particular session, which is doing business with Kenya, was facilitated greatly. And this is where I take my hats off to the Kenyan embassy in South Africa, Ambassador Jacqueline, who just came on board and said, Sawa. And for those in South Africa, Sawa means, okay, good. And that's Sawa. And I'm putting words in her mouth, but it was the equivalent of Sawa saying, I'm in it, I'm for it, let's do it. And she's been working tirelessly to connect us with counterparts from Kenya that support this conversation that we are about to have. And so without further ado, I'm going to go into the rest of the program today, which is really to highlight what can you expect. But before I move on, Ambassador, I know that you're not sitting on the panel, but I'd love to bring you on screen, on camera. I did see that when you signed in, you're on camera, so that the ladies can see who you are and just so we can acknowledge the role that you played in facilitating and making this session possible.
Good morning, Rehema. Good morning, ladies. And I see a gentleman also on the call. And thank you so much for the initiative to have this conversation. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a bit unwell and my voice might be on and off, but I thank all the ladies that have joined the call. I thank all the ladies that have heeded the call to join the conversation, and I'm hoping that what the yield or the impact of this conversation will be great, and we will make partnerships and connections and increase trade between our two countries. Of course, you know that Kenya and South Africa enjoy excellent bilateral relations. And one of the focuses of the mission here is to grow trade between the two countries. So this is one of the initiatives that are there to grow the trade. And I look forward to hearing what will come out of this conversation. Thank you, ladies, and have a good one.
Thank you so much. I must say I put her on the spot, and as usual, as a diplomat, she just came on graciously. I was aware that she's not feeling well, so we really thank her. And this is the kind of commitment we have. And when we said that we're looking to have a conversation that is specifically focused, so we don't talk about what isn't there. We talk about what we'd like to create and what we'd like to deliberately curate. We're looking to curate a conversation that focuses on the needs of African women, that puts a lens on the conversations and the questions and the answers that we are seeking, and we are hoping to get more insights as to what we're looking for to have answered, and also what is bothering us, what's top of mind. I had some wonderful conversations yesterday with some of the entrepreneurs you'll be speaking to later. So I'm going to say right now, for your input, Doreen, be ready, because they want to understand why certain things in banking work the way that they do. And I think that it's important that as we have this conversation, I am going to ask that we only keep the cameras on of those who are speaking, so it allows us to spotlight and focus, and they will be doing some presentations, but it also allows us to not be misdirected by other things that are going on in our environments. I'm also going to ask that we take care of our environments, because sometimes we end up showing things that we have no intention of showing, not because we are careless, but simply because we are not aware of what's going on around us. So I'm going to ask for those who are not speaking to be conscious of that and to take your cameras off. It also helps with bandwidth, so that's not a bad thing. So without further ado, I'm going to share what is on our program for today. What can you expect from this conversation? It's always important that we do that we are able to curate what the expectations are and manage that effectively. And so I'm hoping that by doing so, we are able to ring fence what you can expect from the session, but importantly also focus on what is important for this particular conversation. I am going to look for the right screen. This is the thing about working with technology. You've got multiple screens, and you are trying to toggle between all of them. Here I am. I'm looking for my presentation, just so that I can share that with you. My apologies for that. You have everything queued up, but then you start speaking, and all of a sudden, it's not where you had left it. So if I will put that up. Thank you. Ladies, I'm having a technology moment, which is not common because I am the junkie in the office. So if I'm having a technology moment, that is not ideal. But let me go on without further ado, so that I do not delay the process by trying to figure out what my technology has decided to do for me today. So without further ado, in terms of what we're going to cover in today's conversations, what can you expect coming into this particular conversation today? You can expect that we are going to be talking about bilateral agreements, and we're going to position why this is a necessary and important conversation. We're going to position the implications and the opportunities for reciprocal business. What we're appreciating is that on the line today, we have more than just our South African counterparts. We've actually got our counterparts from the rest of the continent that have joined the call. And so for it to be a practical conversation, we're going to be talking predominantly about Kenya, and our lens coming from South Africa will also be South African focused, but we're also looking at the lessons that we're learning about what this means to have bilateral agreements, but as well positioning what some of the reciprocal contexts are. And because we're going to be doing this with more than one country. I think that what we're able to say is that we can take lessons and questions that in future sessions we'll be able to come back, reflect on, and develop from. And so we will be having that, and it will be presented by Zanele Sanni, who's from our Department of Trade, Industry and Investment in South Africa, in competition in South Africa. Thank you so much. This is why it's great to have team members, because they can just jump in and sort out the technology. Thank you so much, Lebo. So we'll be having a conversation that's going to be hosted by Zanele. After that, we are going to be looking at the realities of moving money. Again, we're going to speak around the nuances of this. What does it mean to move money? I think yesterday we were talking about, again, I've had the benefit of speaking to some of the panelists, or all the panelists in today's conversation. And I think what comes to heart is what the reflections are. And I'm looking forward to us using the chat function quite prolifically and sharing some of the questions so we can tap into that. The realities of moving money and what this means. And then we also, ladies and gentlemen on the call, have an opportunity to reflect on some of the entrepreneur stories. And in the entrepreneur stories, we're looking to unpack what is the journey that they've had in Kenya. We want to get a sense, you can go online and you can do Google research. We're hoping that this is not like the kind of information you'll just find on Google, but it's more enriched with the practicalities. These are Kenyan women powerhouses who've been in business for quite a while, who've experienced it, and can come and tell us, what is it like doing business in Kenya? And I know that for the future, we will also start bringing in South African businesswomen to give a sense of what is it like in here. But I know that we've got South African women who will be able to contribute to this conversation when it comes up. And I hope that you help me welcome Flora Mutahi, Margaret Komen, and Elizabeth Kamau to that conversation. And then we'll have a Q&A. So in terms of how we're going to run the session this morning, I will be calling up the speakers who will have a brief opportunity to share their content and context, open up to a couple of questions. If we don't get to your questions immediately, please keep them in the chat, because when we open up the Q&A at the end, it really will allow us to go back, answer some of the questions that haven't been answered. We're hoping that this is just a tiny bit of your morning and a stimulus to the conversations we'd like to have. So please be assured that whilst the conversation might end online today, we are hoping that it opens the doors for these conversations continuing after the session is over. So, ladies, are you ready? Give me a thumbs up. This is why I like technology, because you're able to see little cues like thumbs up, we're ready to go. And I hope that you're looking forward to it being interactive. Thank you, Doreen. And so, yes, let's see this using technology to just indicate that we are live, we are here, we are vibrant, we are not passive, we are actually active and committed to using this platform for the intention that it has. Thank you so much, seeing you all committing to that journey. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker up, and our first speaker is Zanele. And Zanele's bio will come up just now, but just to let you know that we have, as Womanomics Africa, had the benefit as being a not-for-profit organization, and our group of companies has got both a not-for-profit and for-profit. And what we've appreciated is the role of working with our Department of Trade and Industry, not just in terms of our local growth and development, but as a partner in our growth journey outside the continent. And we've really benefited from not just the trade missions, but some of the development programs that have seen us going to such countries in Africa, in Europe, that have allowed us to expand our product range, reach and knowledge and insights simply by virtue of the work that we do. But in doing that, we have also come to appreciate, and I think that when you get to the conversation later on with the entrepreneurs, you'll also get to hear some of the lessons that we've had of doing that. And so it's great that she comes on board and tells us a little bit more about the role of bilateral agreements. Why are they important? What landing do they give me as an entrepreneur? Why is it better to go to a country where there's a good relationship with government as opposed to not so good relationships with government? And then importantly, an area that she says she's very excited about. What are the reciprocal opportunities? Investment, funding, business, what does that look like? Without further ado, welcome on board, Zanele, and we're really looking forward to your insights on bilateral agreements as well as reciprocal opportunities for doing business.
Good morning, everyone. Very nice to meet you, although virtually. I'm hoping that I'm audible. Okay, I'm going to share my screen because I will actually do a presentation on our views. So just bear with me, and I'm praying that technology will not let me down. If I can get confirmation that you are able to see the presentation. You are able to. Okay, all right then. I will not be seeing your reactions because the presentation is also on my screen. But just to contextualize, obviously, when I did receive the invitation, I was very excited to come on board. And I know that this is a dual audience. We have quite a number of Kenyan speakers, and I thank you, Rehema, for mentioning that in the future we'll also have more South African women who are doing business in Kenya to also share their experiences. So my presentation, which is really looking at talking to the South African audience in terms of when they want to engage Kenya. So it's actually projected in that way. However, the information is relevant for women of both countries. And I've started with the Kenya context because for me, it's very important to share with the audience that the South African government considers Kenya to be a strategic partner, and our relations with East Africa are actually anchored on Kenya. So all of our relations, our hub for our government, political, economic, social, etc. And it is for the reasons that are here. I don't have to tell Kenyans in terms of who you are, in terms of your economy. But I think just to share with my sisters from South Africa that Kenya is a strategic partner because of the diversity of its economy, and when you compare it in East and Central Africa, it is actually the largest in terms of its industrial output. What is usually not mentioned, but it makes Kenya a global player, is that it's also a regional hub for the development partnership institutions and the Bretton Woods institutions. I think there's probably the largest number of diplomatic representation in East Africa, probably second or third in the world. Ambassador can confirm that. And then on the in the region, it also has the highest rates of internet and mobile penetration. And the country does have a very strong manufacturing base, and it has sophisticated financial markets that are probably the leading ones in the East African region in East Africa, and similar to us, also very well integrated into the international and the regional trade blocks. So the context, as Rehema said, it's good to actually trade with a country where there's good government relations at the top. And against that backdrop, I also just wanted to share how we view the context of Kenya, our understanding of its economic goals, similar to ourselves who have a Vision 2030 document. Kenya's ambitions, our understanding is that you do want to transform into an industrialized middle-income country, and you want to address the challenges, the triple challenges that we have also in South Africa. It's unemployment, poverty, and lack of income. In South Africa, it's the same. The challenges that we are addressing is unemployment, poverty, but we call it inequality. So you can already see that there's alignment in terms of how we approach our government resolution of challenges. They are all addressing these three challenges. If you look at Kenya's trajectory, we've had a long history, and I'll go into it shortly. But if you look at the new transformation agenda, it's focusing on SMMEs, it's focusing on food security, on housing and settlement, healthcare, the digital superhighway, as well as climate change. So you can see that these priorities are also very much aligned with our, and you can see that in the meetings or in the gatherings that we would have on a bilateral basis, we would be looking at that. Both countries also are looking at having export-led growth, and Kenya was one of the first countries that actually piloted the AfCFTA at the time with 6 other countries. Now there's 15 of us that are trading under the guided trade initiative, with South Africa having onboarded at the beginning of this year on the 31st of January. Just in terms of that, Kenya does have many other bilateral free trade agreements with other countries, and also being a member of the East African Community. So when you do engage a country, you look at its economic goals and you look at the alignment. And that's why for us, I wanted to showcase that, to say that the relationship is sound. There's excellent political goodwill between our 2 countries. And the aim of this, of our participation here, is to ensure that that political will does translate into economic goodwill. And so against that backdrop, I will go straight into our economic relations with Kenya. And at a government-to-government level, our economic relations are predicated on a bilateral trade agreement that was signed as far back as 2008, where we cooperate on the economy. In order to implement that, we then have between our ministries of trade and industry, we have joint working groups that look at market access issues that affect our business people. We look at the business climate that affect investors in both our terrains. And then we also look at the MOUs that are actually guiding the relationship between our 2 countries. So in regards to that, we've also had an elevation of that relationship. So the Joint Trade Committee that I'm talking to, it was then subsumed into a larger structure in August 2020, which is called the Joint Committee for Cooperation, that then includes all other areas, that includes economy, that includes political cooperation, that then also include social cooperation as well. As the 2 countries, it's mentioned that this webinar is part of really showcasing the implementation of the AfCFTA. Both our 2 countries are the signatories to both the African Continental Free Trade Area and also to the Tripartite Free Trade Area. And just to demonstrate the significance and the importance that both governments hold in each other's eyes, we've had reciprocal state visits by our 2 presidents. The president of Kenya came to South Africa in 2011, the erstwhile president, and shortly after the inauguration, we believe that we were the first African country to receive a state visit invitation. So President Ramaphosa visited Kenya in 2022. So that then forms the foundations of our relationship. But what is interesting for the team that is on board is the private sector engagements between the 2 of you, between the business people of the 2 countries. So through a report that is done by the Foreign Direct Investment Markets Intelligence, South Africa has about 42 investment projects that are to the value of 6.84 billion. And they've created about almost close to 3,000 jobs. This doesn't incorporate new investments that came in 2023. I do recall that in 2022 and 2023, we had about 4 new investments into the country, one by a company called Actum. We have a new airline also entering the space. We've got Vitality Health International, and we also have Zutari. So all of these just showcase that South Africa continually invests into Kenya, and the representation and the sectoral representation that's demonstrated there just showcases which sectors South African companies have invested in Kenya. So that's just a long list that shows when the actual investments were. Safe to say that we are probably amongst the top 4, top 5 investors in Kenya when you look at Kenya's global investment attraction footprint. This is a very interesting slide, and that showcases the trade between our two countries. And you will just see that there's one glaring or telling statistics that is showcased by this, and we are looking at trends. You would see that the blue bars show our exports to Kenya, and the orange bars show what South Africa imports from Kenya. Overall, then, the implications are that South Africa enjoys a trade surplus with Kenya, because Kenya imports more from us than what we do from them as a country. And therein lies, I think, the opportunities for the women on this platform to then see how they can contribute to balancing this statistics, hey, the Zulu tongue, hey, the statistics that I've demonstrated on the screen. And also, if you just do a further drill down, you will see that what we export to Kenya is base metals, a lot of iron and steel. There's a lot of vehicles that are exported from South Africa to China. There's chemical products, which are inputs into the manufacturing processes in Kenya. There's also the mineral products, and then you have machinery and mechanical appliances. What South Africa then imports from Kenya, you'll see, is also chemical products that contribute to some of our manufacturing processes as well. But the bulk of it, you would see that about 36% is vegetable products. In the agro-processing sector, you'll see that about 8% is also animal products. And then the other spread is between base metals, plastics, machinery, as well as footwear. There's implications, I think, for this, because obviously you are seeing that the trade component that is heavily skewed towards South Africa. What the South African participants on the call should be aware of is that not just with South Africa, but with each and every country that Kenya has a relationship with, and as we do in South Africa as well, we are always looking for reciprocal trade, and to the point that is as reasonable as possible to have equitable trade between our trade countries. So what you should be aware of is that in Kenya, there's a very heavy emphasis, which is very similar to what we have in South Africa, of Proudly South Africa, where you have a Build Kenya and a Buy Kenya type of campaign that encourages local consumption of Kenyan manufactured products. So to the extent that you can invest in Kenya and partner with Kenya and produce in Kenya while you source inputs from South Africa, the probability of your products or of your investment having success is predicated on that. There's also the regional implications, is that like all other regions or other countries, there is a drive to preserve industries that a country wants to grow. So in that regard, there has been a common external, the fourth band of a common external tariff that was implemented a while ago. However, we are very happy to report that with AfCFTA coming on board, the implications on certain products have now been taken away, and that we are then able to trade on the tariffs that are agreed upon. But whenever issues come up, you would see that in the JTC that I spoke to earlier, we then meet with our Kenyan officials, our counterparts, to then resolve issues that may be impeding trade. What is very important to know, and I think if I can maybe just go back to the slide, probably if there's nothing that you remember from today, is that this has caused much consternation between our two countries, the trade deficit. So the expectations that are there would be that there is increased pressure for us to provide market access for Kenyan products into our country. In this regard, at the JTC level, we've already exchanged lists of the products that we will want to trade amongst ourselves, and already there's been progress towards that. And then where there are challenges of trade, so you would find that we've provided market access to each other, but there are still challenges in terms of resolving or actually providing market access. We also resolve that at the JTC level. So I spoke earlier about how South Africa is one of the key investors. South Africa has also a development integration focus, and there's excellent alignment with some of the priorities. I mentioned that there's been a move away from the Big Four to the economic transformation agenda, where there's human settlement is a priority. There's collaboration between our Department of Human Settlements as well as the counterpart in the country of Kenya. There's also South Africa has always canvassed Kenya to be able to undertake a number of projects in infrastructure development, because we believe that that's also key to integrating the continent and also ensuring that products that are produced in Africa are then able to move. Just supporting that, which might not be for the agricultural sector, but actually it is because there's also availability of finance through our institutions such as the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the Export Credit Insurance, and also the ECIC. But there is a heavy emphasis on PPPP, meaning that should you then choose to venture into an infrastructure project or similar, you would then be expected to go into a PPP arrangement. And then for our South African sisters, what is known is that Kenya is being courted by many people, many countries, because of the reasons that I think I demonstrated on the first slide. So like any astute business person, the responsibility is on us to provide timeless, compelling, and competitive offerings when we do engage with Kenya. I think I've already spoken to the expectations, but I mentioned that at the government level, we've already exchanged lists of the products that will be trading with each other. And specifically for this audience, you would see that from Kenya, we've received market access is already exists for avocados, for pineapples, for tea and coffee, for horticulture. That is because Kenya is amongst the leading producers of horticulture or flowers. And then there's also opportunities for meat and dairy products to then have access in the South African market. The discussions were already concluded at the South African Customs Union, which is what we trade under, and also the East African Community. And those products already find a representation in the tariff schedules of the AfCFTA. I mentioned already that where you have the highest probability of success is for relocation of your manufacturing into an SEZ or an export processing zone. For the for the audience that's here, that would be a consideration of infrastructure products like cold storage to ensure that products in the agricultural domain have a long life, or that can then allow the transport of those goods in still good conditions. Outside of the agriculture, Kenya has reached out to us to make investments in also other infrastructure projects from Mombasa port, as well as to other various ports in the ports of Kenya. And I mentioned earlier the cooperation between our two countries in affordable housing. Just safe to say, to repeat, the preference for Kenya to enter into PPP arrangements or privately initiated proposals. I think maybe just to conclude the presentation, in terms of opportunities for doing business, for South Africa, we obviously do evidence-based, and I did it, the top 10 products that have the highest probability of succeeding, and you see there's actually reflection of the same, is the iron and steel, and you saw that in the earlier presentation, you saw the vehicles. But in terms of agriculture, seeds have the highest probability, vegetable seeds, and this is evidence-based from a tool that is called the Decision Support Model that looks at agreements that exist between the two countries, that looks at competition, that looks at where Kenya sources. So in the agricultural sector, these are the three that have been discovered. This is evidence-based research. And the last one is wine. I'm very proud to report that in the African continent, Kenya is the largest consumer of South African wine. And what we've seen is that Kenya no longer just opts for the entry level. So you'll find some premium wines that you sometimes cannot find in South Africa, and that just demonstrate the very sophisticated palette of Kenyans for South African wines. Reciprocally, I mentioned this before, the opportunities in the agricultural sector at the highest level for South Africans to then import into South Africa is Kenyan tea and coffee, avocados, pineapples, horticulture, meat and dairy products. I'd like to conclude the presentation at this level, and just to say thank you to everyone. I'm prepared to take questions. I don't know if it'll be now, Rehema, or whether you'll allow all the presenters to go first. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zanele. I'm sitting there and I'm taking copious notes, and I'm hoping our audience is doing the same. I think you had things in there. I'm writing notes to Lebo and I'm saying, Zanele must come for another masterclass. We need this as a podcast, because I think there's richness in what you're saying around things like your Joint Trade Committee. I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, gosh, I didn't know about that. How do we have access to that? How you're facilitating things like market access. When you go into any economy, you're sitting back and you're thinking, how do I actually navigate this space? The idea that there's a reference point looking at business climate, I think, you know, as an African, sometimes we keep hearing some negative news, but when we hear about the rigor that we are applying as Africans in terms of our governance, in terms of our official structures, in terms of getting insights, information, research-based. I think you ended up in a conversation around all these research-based reference points. That's empowering. I know as a business, I'm looking, we do pineapples. As Oya Foods, we do pineapples. I'm like, importing from Kenya, I know the taste of pineapples from Kenya. You cannot compete with East African tropical fruit. So Lebo's nodding her head. She's like, we've been looking for suppliers from that. And I'm hoping that other ladies on this call are just as excited around the practicalities. Seeds, I mean, with this whole conversation around GMOs, etc., the idea that we are able to trade as Africans around our strengths, heirloom products that, you know, generationally defined and also modified based on what works for our environment, the sustainability element, the climate element. Excitement around the wine. I'm not a wine drinker. One day people will convince me, it's not yet there, but I'm seeing around the continent as a growing middle class, there's excitement around some of the, what we used to call luxury products and how they're actually driving economic activity. What was rich about your conversation was the dual perspective. As a South African looking in, I'm saying, oh, manufacturing is expensive here. I need to do research as to manufacturing opportunities to do in another country. What does Kenya offer for me? Given that that might be a source for a lot of the products that we're looking at, what does that mean? Ladies, I'm hoping that this conversation is stimulating, if not the immediate answers, it's stimulating the questions we need to be asking and also framing how do we get closer to our government bodies, the trade and industry? And I know we've got the same perspective or the same opportunity from a Kenyan side. What does that mean? How do we leverage the official structures that government has set up to access these opportunities? Again, I'm fully recognizing that in this conversation, we're almost going to be teasing you, tantalizing you with here are the opportunities, this is what it looks like. But I think for me, you've excited me. I mean, we had the benefit again through our organization, Oya Foods, at being at the launch of the shipment that went, the first shipment from South Africa, that went from South Africa to Kenya, from I think it was Durban port or Cape Town port. We were at the Durban port. And I think the excitement at that time saying AfCFTA has been made real. The abolishment of certain tariffs, the loosening of some of those tariffs that allow us to trade is just so practical. And so I think for us, it's sitting back and saying, there's a lot that we have spoken about as Africans that is starting to come real in our generation. And that's inspiring. That's actually exciting. Zanele, thank you so much. We are calling you back. You are staying with us on this journey. And ladies on the call, you are free and you're open to put into the chat some of the questions. The question that's already come through is, can we have a copy of the deck? One thing that I know about our Department of Trade and Industry and Competition is that they are generous with information, and it's just, these are the kind of environments that allow us. So we will be sending the decks that are being presented today to all the participants that are on the call, so you can have access to that. Zanele, that's correct, right? We will have access to that. Fantastic. Gosh, I'm sitting here and I'm stimulated. It's a public holiday in South Africa, and I'm sitting and I'm stimulated and I'm thinking, yes, I'm in the right field. I'm in agribusiness. What I love as well about the presentation is when we're looking at agribusiness, we're not just looking at the manufacturing, or rather the primary level production and secondary level production, but we're looking at the whole value chain. And so the ability to say that in as much as I'm playing in this sector, where are the other opportunities that also help to drive growth in that sector actually intersect with what I'm doing. And I think we're excited about value chain opportunities that are available in both countries. And I hope that from our Kenyan counterparts, you're listening to a South African perspective of what we are seeing in Kenya, and it's resonating for you, that we see that, or as we have richer conversations as we go on, you're also able to provide a bit of nuance to some of those possibilities that we are framing. Because it's one thing for us to sit with the data and the perspectives, it's another for the lived experience to come through, and we're hoping to share more of the lived experience. Thank you so much, Zanele. Our next speaker speaks about something that's topical. So as we're framing the discussion and what we're going to talk about, and when we've been doing business on the continent, one of the conversations that comes up a lot of times is, okay, we can do business on this continent, but let's get serious about how do we move money. There are so many regulations, there are so many protocols, there are so many limitations. It seems very easy to take money into a country, but how do you take it out of a country? What are the requirements and perspectives that we need to have? And in channeling this particular conversation, we went to one of the large financial services companies on the continent, and we had we basically nudged. You know, as women, we go into your networks and you're saying, no, I want to have this conversation. Who's the right person? And we were directed to Doreen Kironge from Stanbic. And in a conversation with her yesterday, I was excited about what can we have, what can we share? What are the realities around moving money? Because I know that when I'm working in a particular country, it used to be so difficult. One of the entrepreneurs shared with me yesterday that, you can bring money in, but to take it out, you're going to go through hoops. And sometimes it delays how we're doing business. So one of the things that many entrepreneurs are worried about is going into another country, but being able to move money. On the continent, I'm seeing a greater move. I was in Nigeria a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and withdrawing cash from the ATM, I kid you not, as a South African, I could only withdraw 50 rands at a time from an ATM, 5,000 naira. And it was crazy. And I was thinking, why is that? And there's a move to go cashless. So as we move to go cashless and more digital, what does this mean for us? We're doing trade where a lot of the places that sometimes we want to do business still require us to be transacting in cash. And so to lead us through this rich conversation around moving money on the continent, I'd like to invite Doreen Kironge, certified trade financial professional. You hear all the women on this chat will be like 2 decades, 3 decades in doing this. So we've got experience and experts to have this conversation. And she's very skilled in knowing local and regional nuances and implications of international trade and financial solutions. And so really kind of having your support partner who does this for a living and says, hey, here are the realities about money, but also to provide us a perspective that a particular financial institution, which is Stanbic, has around supporting women in business doing trade and international and African trade. Doreen, without further ado, you are welcome to take the floor. How do we move money? Is it easy? Is it getting easier?
Thank you, Rehema. I'm so happy to be here. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Just give me a second. Can you let me know if my screen is visible?
You are visible, thank you.
Okay.
Screen is visible.
Yes. So I just wanted to start by just giving a few, a little bit of information on how business is being run on the women's side when it comes to Kenya. Just give me a second. I think my screen is too big. Okay. Yeah, so just to take a little bit of information, when you look at the female population in Kenya, it's 50% of the country, which is actually a very good thing. When it comes to the business and the financial sector, when we did some bit of deep dive into Kenya and realized the female-owned businesses, about 27%, so we really still have a lot of opportunity there. And then the one with registered businesses, and I think it's an East African issue where most of the businesses are not registered formally. And so we saw about 39% of the female-owned businesses are not registered. And then on the credit side, it's about only 9% of the ladies that actually come to banks to borrow. So the opportunity is still there. I just want to encourage the ladies on the forum that you need to reach out and we get our place on the table when it comes to businesses. On the digital side, we're still not doing well. 37% of the women use internet compared to 55% of the men. And then about 36.7 million Kenyans are not connected, but of that, 19% are women as opposed to the side of the men. And also when we just take a quick look into the leadership, the women in parliament about 23%, the ministerial roles are 47%, so you're doing really well when it comes to that in the leadership area. But then when it comes to farms where female top managers, it's about 18%. So we still need to encourage our girls to come up for such positions. But also when it comes to the female legislators, we have about 29% of the Kenyan ladies represented there. So my passion was to start and look at how can we do business, but also how do you get into business with knowledge of how it is run. So from the side of the bank, and this is information that we usually share with clients, just to give them an understanding on how this is done and how you walk in there with some sort of information on your fingertips. So we have two types of skills. You're either a seller or a buyer, and in this case, in case you're a seller, then you're selling or exporting agricultural produce to South Africa, or if you're buying something from South Africa, because like Zanele mentioned, the skills are tipped to the side of South Africa, so we need the Kenya bit to also come through. So if you're buying things from South Africa, what are you supposed to take care of? What should you really pay more attention to? And when you look at my screen, in the middle, right in the center, are the ways in which we do business. How do we transfer funds? How do we run businesses? How do we trade, actually? If we're to look at an example of Kenya and South Africa. So when you're a seller, if we're going to look into the export side, your best is when South Africa sends you money upfront, which is what we call the advance payment. So as you agree on a contract, you're asking them to give you money at the beginning before you even export anything, before you even prepare anything, you're asking them to give you money. If you're a seller, that is the most secure because you get your money upfront, you're able to prepare and have your produce ready, but you're very sure that you have the money in your pockets. However, if you buy and someone in South Africa asks you for money up front, then it's the least secure as you who's buying, because you're sending money before you see anything. There's a chance that things could go wrong and someone may not actually send the goods as is. And this one came into play especially during the COVID period, where borders were cut off, economies were shut down, and people had actually sent money to the different countries, to the different localities and regions in the world. And because they were not able to export or take anything out of their country, monies were stuck, some businesses closed, and they were not able to get their monies back. So you need to be very careful. You need to understand which side of the spectrum you are, and then to know which one works for you and which one works really against you when it comes to doing business on an international or local level. Then the next one we see there is what we call documentary credit. This is more of banks coming in to help you deal with your trade. And so usually they would say, if I'm going to send you these things, a bank will give you maybe a promissory note. We're telling you, if you do A, B, C, D, and D, we as a bank will actually come in and take care of the payment. This is very important for us as ladies, because the bank or the financial institution substitute your name with theirs. So when you're ordering for anything, or if you're buying something and there's a document that speaks about a bank being the one that will pay, the guy on the other side is very secure, and they'll probably give you goods at a very good discount. They'll make sure that the goods that you've asked for are in this particular maybe sizes, quantities, and everything that you're looking for. Now, this one seems to be working for both sides. So when it comes to the buyer, it's a good thing for you to have to know very well that before I pay for anything, I have a document in place and I'm secure. But even if you're selling, it still takes care of you knowing very well that even if I send these goods without money, having come to my account, there's a financial institution at the back that's going to help me get my funds. So under this credit, it's banks talking to banks. We commit to another bank who then passes the information down to their client and tells them, if you're selling, we have gotten confirmation that whatever you're selling, if it is indeed as per prescribed in the contract, we shall be able to get the funds for you. So that one works for both ways, and it's a very secure means of transferring or of trading when it comes to whether you're a buyer or a seller. Collections on the other side is when someone just sends you documents and they're asking for money. This one is the cheapest when it comes to bank, especially if you're trying to understand the cost of doing business for yourself. It's very important for us to do the whole cost of what am I selling, what are my profit margins, what are the costs that are going on that I can actually work around and reduce. The easiest one is what we call documentary collections. Here, banks come in, we collect documents for you, we charge you a commission, but against those documents, we're actually confirming that we shall get our funds out for you, depending on what the other party has committed to. They're not as expensive as documentary credits, and they're a lighter version, but they're usually done by clients that have created a relationship and a mutual trust, where your partners in whichever country they are, they've actually come to trust you, and so they're able to send you documents confirming what they're shipping on your behalf, and that you're confirming that you'll pay at a later time come in the future. The one that is scary for the one that is selling is the open accounts. Open accounts is where someone says, I am going to sell you these goods, but they are basically on credit. So I'm not giving you anything, just send. When I sell, I'll actually collect the money and send it. Now, when you're a seller and you're selling on open account, it's scary. You have no money, you have no confirmation that the money will actually come, but you're sending goods and you're giving someone to sell. So someone can, if something changes in their economy and they can't sell your goods, you have no claim on the money. If some sort of law comes into play in their country and they say, because of this and this and this, the following goods can be sold in this country, then you're still at a very bad, you're at a disadvantage when it comes to the side of the seller. However, if you're a buyer and you have a customer, say in South Africa or in Kenya, that is telling you, I'm going to trade with you on open account terms. I'll send you the goods, you will sell. After you've sold, give me my money. That is the best that you can ask for if you're a buyer. So this is supposed to just give you an understanding, and you need to be very careful on which side you are, so that when you're bargaining, you know which side to pull the most, or which particular payment method or trading method suits you. So it's very important for you to have that. And it's usually available with your bankers. You just need to walk into a bank. And on this particular front, I'll speak about Stanbic. It's of an advantage that we're both in South Africa and Kenya. You just walk in and you ask for that information to help you understand as you're negotiating your contract, where do I stand if indeed I ask for maybe an advance payment? Where do I stand if I ask for payments to be done under open account? The people in the branches and in the network will actually advise you, and you'll be able to make a more informed decision when you decide to trade. We'll go into the digitization space. It's very important for us as ladies to get into the digital platforms. I know some people are still worried about the information flow when it comes to digitization, but the world is moving and we need to get with the program. So this is where we are now integrating systems, integrating processes to give you the comfort of doing all these things within your homes or within the comfort of a place that you feel you can actually run your business. Because truth be told, the idea of walking into a branch every other time, it may not be workable because we are carrying out a lot of things. So I encourage ladies on the forum, get to the digitization spaces. Ask what things can you do in the comfort of your home where you don't have to waste time driving through traffic to get to the different places where you have to get the information that you're looking for. And in here, there's automating of processes. For example, in Standard Group, when you are a customer in any of our affiliates, you're actually able to apply for facilities in the comfort of your home. You scan the application, someone on that side will process and then give you an updated progress report on where you are and what is still needed. You may not even need to face anyone when you're trying to do some of those facilities. So this still saves space, saves you time to do other things that could actually generate more income than you driving to a branch to be able to apply maybe for a facility or get the information that you're looking for. Then under the digitization space, it's very big on data and analytics to make better decisions. Just at the tip of your fingers to go and make Google your friend, just getting in there and asking questions and picking up on data and pulling up things that make you understand how much coffee is maybe sent to South Africa in export. How much do you receive from South Africa? What is coming through South Africa? What are we living? What are we sending out as Kenya? In there, you actually get to realize, okay, if it's coffee, I'm not interested in coffee, but maybe I'd love to be interested in nuts. Is there a market for nuts between the two countries? So it's very important for us to use the digitization era and space to get the analytics and the data that we need to drive the decisions that we make. So you don't make them out of emotions, but you make them out of the information that you've seen and where you can position yourself. Our mobile devices have taken it to a whole other level. Right now with financial institutions, we're able to literally put almost everything that you need about the services that we offer on your mobile. Be it sending money between, local, your person you're buying from in the supermarket, to sending money directly to South Africa or to any other part of the African continent, or even talk about the wider globe. The mobile phones, the devices have become our go-to. I encourage ladies to use this as much as possible. Ask, what else can you put on my mobile phone that can allow me to do business, that can give me the information that I need to be able to do the business that I need to do. Then, of course, we have the cloud-based applications where you get in there and look for whatever it is that you need to look for, store information, pick it up when you need. Now we have AI, put things together and then come up with something that is well informed, and so you make a decision against that to be able to decide on what it is that you want to do as a lady. So, of course, how is this helping us? So, like I mentioned, the optimization of the working process. We have faster processes right now because of digitization. The data insights that I've already discussed, this is something that is coming through really well for us, and I need us to embrace this and look for those insights. Efficiency while you're doing business. You can be in one place, but you're running 3 different businesses simply because of the digitization era that we are in. Then it creates room for innovation. Yeah, you sit there, you Google a little bit of things, you put some 1 and 2 together, and you come up with a whole new idea in the comfort of your home. So ladies, let's embrace digitization. On the side of the customer experience, we now offer personalized experiences. You apply for a facility, and then someone calls you, they're trying to understand what are you trying to drive at, How can we help you? So it's more personalized, and people are starting to appreciate this. But also it gives you an accelerated growth in your business, because now the information is readily available. You know what you can do, you know what you can't do, you know the disadvantages of one thing and the advantage of the other. So you pick up on the opportunities and quickly grow your businesses. We've also seen clients that their loyalty grow highly because we have created the personalization in the communication when it comes to the digital space, that they feel a part of the institutions that we're trying to get them to. So you look at the messages we're sending out right now as banks, we'll have your name therein, dear Doreen. Thank you for being a very good client of Standard Group. There's something that comes with that has created a loyalty that we are appreciating on the side of the financial institutions. But also, the most important thing about digitization is that it's reducing the business costs. You realize you can actually speak to someone in South Africa without moving there, because then you'd have taken a flight, go there, book a hotel, do a whole transportation cost and everything. But now in the comfort of your home, you can actually go online. Or, and I'd like to bring to your attention that in Standard Group, there's something we call Trade Club. Trade Club is a free platform where you simply go after you've registered and you go and just type in coffee buyers, and we give you an array of coffee buyers with their contacts, with their location, and then you start the discussions. We even help you facilitate if indeed a contract is to be written, or drafted. What do you need? How can we help you with the transportation? And you're doing all this without having ever moved to South Africa. Yet we confirm to you, or having ever moved to Kenya, yet we confirm to you that the goods will come on time, there will be the quantity that you need. So there's a lot of costs that have been reduced, which in the other round actually increase your profit margins. So we encourage you ladies to take up and embrace the digitization space and ask us as many questions as you can, especially if you're if you're not yet a part of the Standard Group. We encourage you to come and be a part of the Standard Group, because we have taken this a notch higher when it comes to personalization and supporting our clients. So of course, there are some hurdles that we've realized, and we just want to understand what are the hurdles and how do we overcome them. There's the affordability, and especially I think as ladies, we've been told business is very difficult. Or it is, there's so much that you need to do to start a business. And I want to encourage the ladies in your firm, it is not difficult. The men have done it. We can do it. We go to the same schools. We were raised by the same parents. We can actually do it. What you need to understand is, like I've discussed on the previous slide, what is needed? What are you looking for? What are the costs? So you prepare very well. I think what we lack sometimes is preparation. We jump into something and then we realize, oh, I didn't have all the information that I needed. So it's very important for you to have the information. And as you have the information, I promise you, business is not difficult. Then the other is a cybersecurity. Now we've talked about the digitization and embracing it. Someone will ask, but man, the cybersecurity threats are so many. I could log online and someone hacks into my system. I've had people whose money has been stolen. I want to give you the comfort that we on the side of the financial institutions are doing everything we can to give you guys the information that talks about how do you protect yourself. So don't be afraid of taking on the digital era or going into the internet space. We are now bringing up encrypted messages. How do you protect yourself? That twofold approval. So we are in the space with you, and we're trying to make sure that it is safe for you to go digital. Then of course, there's that technology is for only men, which is very wrong. The cultural barriers that have told the woman that your place is just the home. I want to encourage the ladies. We are in the offices. We are bringing the money in for the institutions that we're working for. So it is possible. We can actually run our homes. We are blessed with a gift of being multitaskers. So you can run your home, but still do a very good business and thrive and go to the top of the business mountain, as long as we put together the preparations that we need. So we can still overcome. So there's a lot of access to information, like I mentioned. Banks are available, the internet is available. There's so much information that is available. There are expertise that are skilled in their fields that you're looking for. So if you agree and you say, this is what I want to do, ask as many questions as you can. Who are the expertise in this area? And the good thing right now is that we have women who are running the exact fields that you want to take on. So ask as many questions as you can. Reach out to the expertise and then build something that is really beautiful. Then, of course, for efficient utilization of capabilities, it's very important for you to know your strength and then build on that to do maximum results. It's good to have that internal checking of yourself and understand, where am I very good at? Am I good at sales? Am I good at the operation side? Use that, and then when you understand what it is, maximize it for results, because that is what the world is actually doing when they're trying to be who they are in the space of business. So when some of the things that we are also going to we need to take into consideration when we want to break these barriers is have access to the different trainings from the professionals, like I mentioned. Go out, spend a little bit of money to reach out to a professional if they need to be paid. But the other advantage we have is that financial institutions are offering this information free of charge. You walk in there and ask for information relating to coffee, information relating to trading, maybe in FMCGs. What do I need? And we are actually able to give you the information free of charge. Look for role models who are women, who can drive that interest and address some of the societal norms that have been said over time. And have engagement with these women and find out, how do they do it? How can you do it? How can they hold your hand and make you someone that can actually stand up in the business world? Networking is very important. I cannot overemphasize this. Create dialogues. There's a lot of awareness that is there. Then there's a lot of experience that is shared. The things that brought down someone in the first year of their business should not be the same things that are going to bring your business down. Get those experiences from the women and understand what happened and how you can position yourself for better. The access to the internet, the data-driven initiatives, the research, the innovation are things that we should use on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we stand up in the business world and know that whatever it is that I've agreed to do, I've done good research and I know where I need to go. Partnerships are very important. Find out, are there any business, women-led initiatives in your area, in South Africa or in Kenya? I know there's a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Reach out to those people and find out, how can you be helped? How can you get to the next level that you want to get? Then, of course, the other funded women initiatives that promote and sponsor business growth. When you actually go to the internet and type in these things and ask if these are available in your countries, you'll be shocked at how much is available for you. And the last one, on the financial institutions that support women initiatives, you'll find that most of the banks right now have what we call women in business. And I stand up to say that Stanbic is doing very well on that. Women in business, we advise women, we support the women. We actually make sure that as a woman comes to borrow, as long as it's a business-led female business, we actually reduce the interest rates, because we want to make the women as competitive as we can and on the business market. So when they get there, they are trading with the men favorably. So in there, you'll find that we will give you free advice. We'll get you the women that you need to have the discussions when it comes to peers. We reduce the interest rates. We talk to you about what you can do and what you can't do, and how you can go around some of the barriers that could be preventing you from actually running the businesses that you need to run as you get into the spaces. And I'll close this with the word from Zig Ziglar, which says, what you do today can change all the tomorrows of your life. And given what we've discussed right now, if we change something and decide that this is what I'm going to do, you'll actually wake up one day and be running a female-based empire in the trading market. And that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Doreen. Again, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, rich insights that you're providing to us. You caught me on the first slides that you had with some of the statistics. Statistics always get to us, and sharing this perspective of 9% access to funding from women in the market in Kenya, which it's dismal. In terms of the access of funding that's available, and it makes us ask some critical questions as to why we have such a low take up of the funding available. And you tail it by indicating that there are more programs now or funding discounts in terms of interest available to women entrepreneurs. And I think for me, this makes me sit back and say, women, how are we collaborating to take advantage of the funding and financing opportunities that exist in different countries? If I was to collaborate with a Kenyan businesswoman to set up manufacturing, how do I take advantage of the interest rates that are available in that particular market? So where access to funding is said to be a limiting factor, I think it's also opening our perspective and lens as to how we are leveraging community and convening to take advantage of the funding that clearly you've indicated is available. What I love is also the perspective that you provided around trade and being the buyer and the seller. At some point I said, no man, this is a vicious circle. I'm at risk of losing money if I'm the buyer. I'm at risk of losing money if I'm a seller. What I loved about what you said, though, is this perspective of understanding where you're sitting and the risks. And I think that it's an important conversation around being in business. The risks that you are facing are not just about your operational risk, but it's also your transacting risk. And as you said, the credit risk that you are facing, particularly with international trade, using the example of COVID and what that meant in terms of not just disrupted transacting, but the risk of doing business with people you don't know. That's a big question. I'm going to Kenya. Do I put my money? How do I put my money? But framing for us the opportunity of using your financial services partner to help to mitigate some of that risk, putting forward a facility. Now I'm listening to you and I'm like, I'm an ex-standard banker, but that's like 20 years ago. And the evolution of the financial services sector to respond to the needs of where our businesses are, and putting forward something like the Trade Club. I'm sitting back and I'm like, I'm Googling that. As a person in international trade, what is really important is this access to information and insights and partners and networks and ecosystems that facilitate that. So it's also a conversation about the evolution of banking to more partnership and financial services that are relevant to business. Also, the last thing that I think that I picked up was the utilization of big data. And I think that being a financial institution, you are sharing with us that the access to data that you have is really significant in an era of analytics. And I think we were looking at reports around doing trade, and I think one of the reports comes to like $1,700. And as a businesswoman, I'm thinking, salaries, reports. But the question that I'm sitting with right now is, to what extent will financial services partners start disseminating, and you alluded to some of the information being available, but disseminating some things like trade movements on a monthly basis that allow us to know what's being bought, what's being sold, so that we have a sense of, market trends. So that would be exciting to see the reciprocity also, not just in terms of using facilities to transact, but also utilizing the information and data you get from these transactions to facilitate or enable richer knowledge and insights. And I think, again, looks like you and us, we're going to be having continued conversations around what it looks like to move money. And also, I think what you did was firmly put it back into the hands of women in business around what we are focusing on, how we are shaping our businesses, what information we're looking at. And I think what I got out of that was that the responsibility around moving money is ours. And I think that any facility or any institution that you bring on board is there to help you and assist you. But what I'm loving is that the evidence of the willingness of institutions to take on board those insights and to start defining solutions. And you said something that I was like, that's so true. I think 20, 30 years ago, when some of us started working, financial services was very male. And the leadership in a lot of financial services institutions is increasingly female. So the ability to tap into people who are more knowledgeable about how women organize, how women work, what they bring to the table, how they're responding, and also credit profiling, I think, has taken on board the behavior of women as borrowers and the ability to pay. And that's really going to be making a difference. And I think it helps to justify the risk factor that's applied to the interest rates that are being shared and offered to women in business. So it's exciting. And I think it does highlight an opportunity for us to have these conversations around what is money looking like for women, how is it moving, how is it growing, and where are we patting ourselves on the back, and where must we pause and say, don't pat yourself yet. These are the other things that we want to bring on board. And I'm sharing on behalf of the team, we need to bring on board more of the availability of analytics that are useful for women in business to be able to facilitate their trade and business. Thank you so much. I am I know that when I start talking, I have the ability to take the conversation on and on. So what I'm going to do is I am seeing some of the statements in the chat. And again, all our speakers are getting so much kudos. It is almost like a masterclass, very short, very quick, and I hope it is impactful. So I'm very keen for us to move on the program, and no conversation is complete without actually lived experiences. So when we sat and curated the session, we said, well, we can listen to some of the things that are coming through, but as a South African living in South Africa, I don't have a taste and feel of Kenya, right? Until I speak to an entrepreneur, because I can paint a picture of amazing opportunity. And they say when you go to a country, you must think about three things, né? Where you're getting and what you're getting to eat, where you're going to sleep, your accommodation, and how you are moving around. And so I love the one about eating because it speaks to us in agribusiness, right? And I know that if you go to Kenya, the one thing you must not leave without having is nyama choma. The equivalent in South Africa is your shisa nyama. And I have it on good authority and my own taste palette that the goat meat in Kenya is second to none. I'm still to find goat meat that tastes anything like that is found in Kenya. But we are not speaking goat meat today, though. We are speaking the experiences and practical realities of doing business as a Kenyan woman in business. This is the lens that we don't get enough insight on. What does it mean to be a Kenyan businesswoman? What is the journey that you've walked that has allowed you to go into international trade? What are the do's and don'ts of doing business in Kenya that you've learned? What are the intricacies or the challenges or the opportunities that you found? We talk AFCTA, we talk about doing trade on the continent. How practical, how easy, or how challenging has it been to give this effect of doing business on the continent? And importantly, as we come into this conversation, how do we effect reciprocity? So we're going to have a learning experience, but we're also going to have an open up your ears in terms of what are the opportunities for us to also transact. The power of women's convening lies not just in the sharing of the messages, but the translation of these messages into transacting power. And we hope to do that. We have three phenomenal ladies who will be sharing their stories in the context that I've shared, and I'll be introducing them one by one so we have an opportunity to have 10 minutes each of their conversation. And I'm introducing, first and foremost, I mean, these are powerhouses. When I was looking at their bios, I'm like, Ambassador Jacqueline, you have done it. You have really done it. Kenyan women in business are powerhouses, let me tell you. You don't sit in the same room and walk out differently after listening to not that their journeys, their outlook, but their drive. Every time I've sat with Kenyan businesswomen, I go home and I think, yo, I'm in kindergarten because there's so much to learn. We're inviting, first up to the chair is Flora Mutahi, seasoned entrepreneur, over 28 years in manufacturing, real estate, board governance, expert in building international brands, penetrating new markets, works in sub-Saharan Africa and around the world, founder and CEO of Melvin, Marsh International, Kenya's largest flavored tea company. Ladies, please welcome Flora on board to share her insights. When I spoke yesterday, I was like, I'm talking to you after this number I'm storing. So I hope you also store this knowledge that she's about to share. And I will introduce the other two speakers and we'll leave questions until the end because I know that we are running a bit short of time, but hopefully 10 minutes each speaker, and then we'll be able to have a Q&A. Flora, Dada, asante.
Okay, thank you very much. And I appreciate. Sorry, just trying to get this going. I don't know if I'll be able to share my screen. Okay. All right. So am I audible?
Perfectly audible. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we could put it on presentation mode. So my name is Flora Mutahi, as you've heard. I been in business for 28 years. And I actually am the one who introduced into Kenya flavored teas. This came off the background of Kenya actually is the third largest, actually moving to the second largest exporter of tea in the world. And it's known as actually God's gift to tea. And what happens is 97% of it, when I started 28 years ago, was exported as bulk tea. because it's good at uplifting. It's got very, very many benefits. And eventually, what my passion was when I started was to actually see Kenyan products packaged at source, sold globally around the world. 28 years later, still working at it. We are global, but it's still been a journey and a half. And maybe that's what I guess you wanted to hear. If I could start my journey, well, I started when I was young, straight out of college. And at the time, putting a product into the market was not particularly competitive as it is now. But standing out, of course, was. And that's how then I came up with my flavored teas. And that's how I stood out in the market. From there, I developed several different flavors and moved from a national product to, going into the region. And as you know, of course, we have a lot of regional agreements. We have the East African Community, we have COMESA, and of course, now very, very excited with the AFCFTA. How is it doing business in Kenya? I would say challenging in as much as you need to cover quite a few bases. And I would say why. Number one, ease of doing business is not that tough. I think right now, Kenya, from the last statistic, Kenya was at 50 out of 100 and something countries. So ease of doing business has not been too difficult. Regulation constantly changing is something that one has really got to keep in touch with. And that is important. Secondly is culture. I've seen a lot of South African companies come into Kenya and not fit in purely because of the cultural approach. They've not understood the way we do business. Kenyans are very face-to-face, relational, actually quite similar to South Africans, but you have to involve them. You have to make them feel part of their own. So I remember when the lady was explaining, if you could bring your manufacturing here and actually set up here in an EPZ, SEZ, or with South Africa, with a Kenyan, that will definitely mean that the product could do a lot better. One of the easiest ways around this, of course, is to join associations. I've been fortunate enough actually to be members and actually chair two large associations. One is the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and the second one is Kenya Private Sector Association. If you join such associations, you'll already automatically be in line with what is in the country. You'd have a place to actually start, a place to actually ask. So for me, I think joining associations, joining organizations such as this, where you're able to share, is yet another very important thing to do. Do's and don'ts. So the don'ts for me, and especially around exporting, has really been about, as much as we have started to remove a lot of the trade barriers because of the bilateral agreements, non-tariff barriers has really come up. I mean, one African country, they actually literally take my product and actually cut piece by piece. And they say, these are not 50 tea bags. This one is not aligned to the left. This is not aligned to the right. This is in the Western African countries. So it is really important to use also associations. So what I have done is I've used the AFT-CFTA offices to actually speak to some of those regulations. Of course, I'm aware that we are trying to align standards so that we have a common African standard. I'm not sure we're going to see that in a hurry, but that is definitely going to be a very big game changer for us. Well, I'm yet to think what else one needs to really know. Locating to SEZs and EPZs, as long as you understand their regulations. SEZs means that you can trade with the country quite easily. EPZ means only 20% of what is made in an EPZ can get into the country. The rest has to go out for exports. Of course, like we said, there are a lot of organizations and associations that can actually help you do this. So in the interest of time, let me just take you through my deck of what I do. So, we have flavored tea, we have black tea, green tea. If we just move on the slide, to the next slide, like we say, why, one of the reasons yes, this is it. One of the reasons that we are looking for importing distributors is we are trying to tell people it's important, Kenyan tea is actually, 100% natural from Melvin's, and it would excite any market that it would get into, because usually you'd find Kenyan teas used for blending, but now we are bringing it in straight up. If you go up to the next slide. Next slide. You know, like why Kenyan tea? Why Kenyan tea? It has unparalleled quality. Basically, the oil, the soils that it is grown on, the rainfall. We just basically have. It's. I would actually call it the wine like of South Africa. So Kenyan tea is actually the wine of South Africa, and you'll find over 20 to 30% of our whole GDP actually has some relationship with in the tea value chain. So it's actually a very big part of our economy, actually second largest foreign exchange earner for the country. The other thing is, of course, we have a diverse range from purple tea, which is unique to Kenya. We have, of course, the green tea, we have white tea, yellow tea. We go to the next slide. Next slide. Yeah, and then why you should trust us as Melvins, you know, we've been there for 28 years. You know, we know the quality, we've excellent customer service, and most importantly, we'll be able to excite your market and really make it make sense. And maybe the final slide is, sorry, the next slide is, this is where we are saying, you know, either we're looking for distributors, and this is what this is about. So, you know, you can either just stay as we are or actually choose to excite your market. And basically that is the story of Melvin's tea. It's been a journey. Everything that has been discussed here we faced from making payments. So we do the simplest way, we say pay up front. We've also started doing the one about documentation, where you know, the banks can talk to each other. But definitely we are looking forward to having a much easier way to trade and a much easier way to do business. So I think in the interest of, unless there's a question, that is really who Melvin's is. We are looking for distributors. We did have our product available in South Africa, actually imported by a young lady. That's our distribution criteria. But we tended to find she was focusing on her business and our business, and therefore it didn't actually make sense. I think the presenter, you had mentioned you're looking for pineapples and avocados. We are looking at an opportunity where if we got South African interested, we would be able to avail all other products from Kenya, and similarly would be able to link them with all other products coming from South Africa into Kenya. So that's also another model where we've decided to be a little bit more agile and not just focus on one product, but actually avail a platform where we could help the import, we could help the export in the same, to sort of help us grow. So thank you. That is the journey. That has been my 28-year journey, and it is still growing, still moving, and extremely exciting.
I have no idea how you've been able to articulate a 28-year journey so simply, so succinctly, so clearly for us. And you are such a gift. I know you had very short notice to come on board and have this conversation. You have dropped so many gems in just that short conversation. Lebo, here's another person that we need to come on with the other podcasts around doing business on the continent. You have joined nuggets that you've shared about joining associations. Lebo and I are the product of a business association, and we've now got over 10 years in business. And because you're finding like-minded people, you're finding common interests, you're focused on what it is that you're looking to achieve. So that's been the gift. You are telling us that you have used the AfCTA offices. Now, this is gold. That's like gold, because the gold in that is, for me, opening to the audience today. How many of you have actually touched base with the AfCTA offices? Because this tariff, non-tariff, it's a nightmare. You think you can take something to another country, but then you realize, and it's costly. Mistakes are costly. So unless you are very clear as to what you can do, we were so excited about some of our product ranges, and we're like, actually no, because right now they're protected. And that's a reality about doing business on the continent, is that as we are moving towards greater food sovereignty and sustainability, we've also created we've actually created protected areas around some food items. So if you're not aware of that, there are imperatives, local economic imperatives on this continent that prevail. And so whilst the idea of free trade is great, but there are also these ideas about sovereignty, meeting the SDGs locally, that as an exporter, you are going to come across. So I'm just wondering what that meant in terms of where your greater market is. You are the second largest foreign direct investment earner in the country. Ladies, bow down. I mean, really, the nuggets you are sharing, you know, and you say them so simply, so gracefully, so casually. I mean, it just provides this. I always say the East African women have a quiet grace in how they communicate information, and that belies the power of the statements that you are making. You've schooled us around the special economic zones and the economic protection zones, and telling us that yes, you can come and manufacture, but understand it's not for the local market, 20% only. You've got to think about how that goes externally. And for me, this opens up this idea of associations need to speak more, not just locally in your country, but cross-country. So if you're not speaking to a Kenyan Association of Women in Business, you will go in and you might find that you're finding barriers or fighting battles that yes, have been sorted at bilateral, but business to business could actually make your world a lot better. So it might not be about setting up in those zones. Those are the practical perspectives. You have given me joy because you've given me the answer I need to give people as to why I don't drink wine. I grew up East African. I drink tea. I'm good.
Make sure it's Melvin's.
I'm going to make sure it's not. You see, there's a conflict there being Tanzanian by birth, but
oh dear,
but Kenyan tea. No, we have my mother, my family. We always have Kenyan. There's two things that we have in the house always: Kenyan tea, Kenyan coffee. Even though we're East African, you have one from every country, because you said something that's powerful that I don't think we elevate enough in our conversations. And I know that when you're speaking to Rwandans and we talk about the coffee, we talk about the volcanic soil and the significance of that soil in the flavoring of the product. We don't do that enough about other agricultural produce and how it actually influences the palate of what people actually get to consume. And I think there's such richness on the continent around the agricultural produce that has a narrative that is better than any. So Melvin's tea is definitely the next one on my shelf, family right there at the moment. So when they come back, they must come back with Melvin tea. And I think that what I loved about your ending point is that you've grown, you've clearly got experience, you've clearly got a network. Is this notion of you're looking to grow still. And ladies on the call today, there's an invitation. Looking for distributors, because unless we're able to transact, this conversation becomes just one of those, women have gathered and it's nice. No, must be a transaction. And I know that Oya Foods is listening to you with very keen ears and saying, also this idea that we don't have to go into markets alone. The ability for you to say, if you want to do business with me, I would love to open this up to the suite of products that are available in this context, and therefore come in with that mindset. Let's not go in with a narrow outlook of doing business and saying, I've got this product and service. Go in with this notion that it is bigger than this. It's opening you up, and therefore your starting point must not be your finish point. Melvin's tea has schooled us. It has schooled us. And I'm going to say in Swahili, when you say to an older sister, you say dada. So I'm saying Dada Flora, asante sana for this masterclass. We look forward to engaging you further and keeping the conversation going and ensuring that this feedback in some way that, you know, this conversation has stimulated a touch point that actually translates into greater business growth for you, but an opportunity that women in South Africa or even in Kenya or across the world that have actually tuned in right now actually leverage and take on board. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the power of having conversations with women in business and not just keeping it just to the fundamentals that we said. It mustn't be a Google conversation. This is not Google, this is real life. So we really appreciating that. Thank you so much. Ladies,
and
I
a
know you've got comments.
quick request. Could we form a group? Do you guys have a group that we could all just be part of?
And are you saying like a WhatsApp group or
yeah,
we will definitely send out invitations, and because I think we have to be conscious about copy and permission, so we will send out invitations and permission and then come back on. That's absolutely right. I know that Womanomics also curated on a platform, but I think that sometimes we underestimate the power of just a group like this on a WhatsApp chat and what it can facilitate. So we will ask for permission, send links out, and then we will essentially invite people on that allows them to opt for that. But Asante, another great point that you're bringing through that we will definitely be taking on board. It doesn't end here. It mustn't end here. We said to the ambassador, we want to end up with a trade mission of some sort, but you don't go out without ensuring that you have been able to sit and understand the playing field that you're in. Thank you so much. Oh, ladies, you see, I'm going to end up with no time for the Q&A because I'm going to end up talking. But I would love to invite next up Margaret Komen as our next speaker. And our next speaker, basically, she is the founder of Mace Foods, right? Having worked in 2 large German spice producing companies, she found the need to develop export products for the EU market, right? And so who you have coming on board right now is the CEO of Mace Foods, a company that specializes in production and marketing of spices and ethnic foods. Now, this is just like taking me home. When you say spices, I'm thinking about the pilaus. I'm already sitting back and thinking, feed me. But not talking about feeding me, ladies. Let's have a conversation with Margaret, who can tell us about her journey and tell us about the do's and don'ts, the lessons and the implications of doing international business as a Kenyan woman. Margaret, you're tantalizing already. Pili pili. Come on.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. My name, I said, is Margaret Komen. Wow, 10 minutes. I tried to shrink this in 10 minutes. So I founded Mace Foods in 2002, and the whole idea was born in Germany. After I had an experience to work in a spice factory. And what really intrigued me was that over 250 of their ingredients were imported from Africa. And I was thinking, so they are building a product line. All the raw materials are coming from somewhere in Africa. And that started tickling my mind about the opportunities for export. So when I came back home, I toyed with the idea for almost 3 years. And then I attended a trade fair again in Germany 3 years later. And I received a lot of requests for chilies. And that was something that was like, okay, chili is a spice. Let me try this. And that's how really Mace Foods started with a capital of $700 when I got a trial order to a customer in Germany. That was 22 years ago. Today, we are talking 12 different chili products for export. And we also introduced a new line for dehydrated vegetables that we also export for specifically targeting Africans living in the diaspora. Because if you live outside Africa, you usually do not get the ethnic foods that you would want to eat back home. So we have, right now, we have 7 different varieties of vegetables. That's just one that I've shared on the screen. We started with the EU market. Today, we enjoy 25% of share of the EU market for one specific product. That is the African bird's eye chili, although we have other chili products that we process and send. I must emphasize that all our products are dehydrated, so we do not touch fresh business. And when you're dealing with dehydrated products, then that shifts how you look at logistics. And I will speak to logistics because it has also influenced what kind of business we can do within Africa. So all our products are shipped by sea. I remember, I think about 7 years ago, we had a customer who was interested in our products from Johannesburg. And I'll tell you, Rehema, we did not do that business because the logistics by sea from Mombasa to Cape Town simply does not exist. There is no vessel channel to that location. So that tells you, when you think about cross-Africa trade, there are several barriers. Because everybody thinks, when people talk export, they think about export only by air. But hardly do people think about export by sea, which is actually the largest form of export in any part of the world. So logistics also internally, because we import raw materials from Uganda, from Tanzania, from Malawi. We've had a lot of requests from Zimbabwe and Zambia. And when you think about the logistics of moving those products to, say, Nairobi, or say where our factory is in Eldoret, I'm telling you, it is a nightmare. You can't even imagine what it takes to move those products. Sometimes when I'm following up on current affairs, I see our leaders or our presidents, signing agreements and saying now we are going to have one-stop border crossings. Everything will be so easy. Until the time you go and do it practically, then you realize all that is just paperwork. Like on the ground, things are very different. So on imports, for us, two issues have really stood out. One is the issue of logistics, which is basically the mode of what kind of transportation systems exist across the countries, and also the ease of actually moving goods from one part of Africa to the other. Those are the two major barriers for us. The other one is finance. And I think I spoke with Rehema briefly about it yesterday, and I was telling her, if I want to pay a supplier in, for example, Tanzania, and I'm banking with, say, for the sake of this discussion, we have somebody here in Stanbic Bank. So if I'm banking with Stanbic Bank, my assumption is if that other customer in Stanbic Bank Tanzania, then it means it should be very easy for me to do that transaction. But the reality is it is not very easy. So if I want to open an account in Tanzania with Stanbic Bank, the regulations are very, very different, completely different. And the two countries, they are both the same bank, but the two banks operate in a very different way. So what it has forced us to do is to also have accounts in those specific countries where we want to do business. It's expensive, it's time consuming. If I have a bank account, say in Kampala, it means if some transactions, I have to literally go up to Kampala to ensure that, some transactions can take place. The banks want to see you physically. So those are the two barriers we've experienced. Generally, in terms of challenges of the business, one of the main things I'd like to emphasize here is compliance to standards and certifications. So if you want to export, this is one of the most important things you need to look into, because without compliance to standards and certifications, you probably will not gain entry into that market. But now where the challenge comes in is that the diverse standards and certifications that are used in different regions. So then how do you ensure that you comply? Just a simple thing like packaging and labeling. How do you ensure then that your packaging is compliant with the labeling requirements, say in South Africa, without you incurring a lot of costs? So sometimes we are forced not to enter any business because the cost of having diverse packaging and labeling requirements is so high. For those who are in business where you have packaging, the cost of just having the cylinders and the print work and done is exorbitant. And so if you have to do a specific packaging and labeling for South Africa, then do another one for Germany, and then do another one for Australia. Those are the most critical things that can prevent you as a business person entering those markets. The other challenge that we usually face is that for our kind of production, we're in a very specialized industry. So where we need really special skills to help us either produce what we are currently producing or do product development for our products. And so we find that the people that are coming out of the universities and the colleges are not trained appropriately to fit into our industry. So we spend a lot of money and time training people to have the skill that we need so that they can give us the services that we require. And finally, I'll talk about access to finance as a woman, and not access to finance in the sense that the money is not available. The money is available, but the money is not availed in the manner in which the business can access it. So if you need, for example, pre-financing for export, I'll give you an example. We are exporting to Korea, and they're quite large volumes, and the value of one consignment could be as little as $50,000 to as up to $300,000, just one consignment. And for this consignment, you have to buy the raw material, you have to pay the suppliers or the farmers in advance, you have to process the product, you have to package it, you have to take it to Mombasa for shipment. The first payment you're likely to get is when you have your documentation after maybe 2 to 3 weeks when you've done all that. Now you need to pre-finance that business because you can't pull out capital from your main business, remembering that you have other products. When you go to the financial institutions, they are not tailored to understand this business. They are not tailored to do short-term pre-financing for this kind of business, and specifically for export, because they have not developed products that are able to understand this kind of business. So we always face a lot of challenges there to have enough cash to be able to service the markets that we're serving. So yeah, Rehema, that is doing business in a nutshell for us as Mace Foods, how it's been. Thank you.
Yeah, there is no way we would have this conversation. And you said, I'm going to be real. And I'm so glad that you were real with us. I'm so glad you're providing this level of texture around imports, opening up our lens. You know, often we talk about doing intra-Africa trade. And what you've opened up is the opportunity to do intra-Africa trade to leverage or to take advantage of global trade. The idea that our products are input products or demanded by the rest of the world really raises the question of how we're collaborating to increase the volume and value of the products that we are providing them. And I think adding value to them is just one of the easiest ways to be able to leverage what that market offers. I think you speak very clearly about the barriers. This transportation, it's crazy. How can we not have shipments from Mombasa to Cape Town? And I think this is a big story around the port scenario on this continent and how it facilitates trade. And we're talking not just about your wet ports, but also dry ports inside, internally, use of rail and logistics to transport our goods, which is actually making them less affordable to do business with each other than it is with the rest of the world. So even as we're looking to collaborate, understanding, I'm still saying we need an African shipping magnet, a woman-owned shipping magnet that can allow us to move our goods on ships that are driven by African women. I understand that the Chinese are getting this story very right, and it's still a big gap from the African continent to have shipping magnets that can help us to actually navigate the use of port or sea travel. I think you have raised, you know, when I was in Tanzania some years ago, there was this, in the East African community, there was a large move to standardize on the movement of vehicles and what that looks like because of appreciation of the community. And you raise an important aspect around the standardization around packaging and labeling and how it adds costs, because servicing different markets means that as a South African, I can't just take my product to Kenya. I need to understand what needs to be relevant. And even if I'm importing, what is it that I need to be compliant to even just, you know, get into that space. Very so many points, but I know that I do need to go to the next speaker. I hope I'm seeing the questions on the chat. I do want us to be able to have the last speaker to share. My team is sending me a hard stop, 11:10. So I'm going to be very, very brief. The conversation is nice. Am I alone? Give me a thumbs up if you think that this conversation actually needs more time than we allocated. But we will do that for the next conversation. For this last conversation, so we'd like to say thank you. Thank you so much for Margaret for lending your voice and giving us those rich, practical insights as to what it means. We're giving the stage right now to Elizabeth Kamau. I'm quite sure that at last year's AGOA gathering, it was last year or this year, I met Margaret at the AGOA session. Because as we were speaking yesterday, I was like, no, man, I met you at a trade experience. And I'm quite sure it was at the AGOA one. But she's a passionate sustainable food producer. Big conversation now on sustainable food. She's the CEO of Shebah Farms, who specializes in organic asparagus. So she's known for her love of pickled foods, and it's become a goal for, Shebah Farms has become very popular in Kenyan food stores. And I know that she was sharing some exciting, or rather some really amusing tales of doing exports as a Kenyan woman in business. And I hope she provides us with some insight as to what it has been and what it looks like doing business in Kenya as a Kenyan businesswoman, and give us a sense of, you know, some of the things we should look out for. Without further ado, Elizabeth, karibu, and we are looking forward to your story.
Thank you so much, Rehema. I know time is much gone, so I will try as much as I can to summarize, not too much of the summary. So as you said, I am a CEO of Shebah Farms. where we produce fresh vegetables like asparagus, and we also do spices like garlic in large scale. Unlike maybe the other presenters, I don't have a presentation. I got the notification to share our story quite late, but I thought even getting it off my head would help. So I will not be sharing any presentation today. As I've said, we grow asparagus and also garlic. Our asparagus is value added. We have it as pickled asparagus. And today you can find our pickled asparagus in various stores in Nairobi and even outside of Nairobi in Chandarana stores, among other stores in Kenya. I will turn off my video so that somebody can see what I mean by pickled asparagus. That is what is on my screen, the pickled asparagus. So the question is, how did we get here? As a business, we got into agribusiness in 2016, 2017. We were doing large-scale production of rare potatoes then. But came COVID time, we were able to carry home with us our assessment report, where we scored poorly. And basically, when COVID came, we lost everything and we were left in debts as a business. Now, we didn't give up. At the end of the COVID season, we sat down as a business and asked ourselves very hard questions. And one of the questions was, before we got into production of rare potatoes, what was our original plan? And indeed, our original plan was to grow high value vegetables and also spices, and it was to go into value addition. And that is exactly what we decided amidst the chaos and the crisis. Let's review and go back to it. We did start with the asparagus, which was on our list as #1 item. And for those who don't know, asparagus is a vegetable, and it's a perennial crop. Takes around 3 years to be ready for market. And since then, our third year was last year. And so we started now thinking of value addition, just to ensure that some of the lessons that we learned during COVID time, that we implement what we felt would have saved us then. And that one of them was to go into value addition. So as I said, you will find that our asparagus is already preserved and we have it ready as pickled asparagus. Now, the whole process of getting to pickling and getting the approval, honestly, it's a long process. It took us more than 1 year to get the various compliance bodies clear us. First of all, because asparagus as a processed product was not available locally then. But eventually, after a lot of push locally, we were able to get all the clearance that is required for us now to process it in large scale. And as you had asked earlier, the main aim for us is actually to do export. So as we were waiting for all these processes to get the clearance to process our asparagus, I got to also apply for the export license, and we are cleared and all that point. And it's also another process. And what I have learned so far with this compliance, the regulatory authorities, the government facilities, as a business owner, it is important you familiarize yourself with them and not so much rely on people, because it can really mess you up. I got really messed up both with the export license, because I felt like I was not capable to do it by myself, but eventually I did it myself and we got the license. How then did we try to get into the international trade? As you rightfully mentioned, last year, I got a call from one of the government offices, the Keproba, and they said, Elizabeth, we saw your product and we feel it's an export quality product. Would you consider going to South Africa? There is an opportunity. And like any other Kenyan, I grabbed it because I knew, oh, yeah, here, things are going to work for me. And immediately, I got ready. I had only a 2 weeks opportunity to prepare to go to the Goa Forum exhibition. And within 2 weeks, honestly, I pulled everything and I was in South Africa with my products. It's a long story on how I got there, but to make it short, when I got to the OR Tambo airport, I had carried my product, pickled asparagus, a vegetable, as part of my luggage. And the first thing I was asked, how are you here? And there were a lot of things that, according to the team at the airport, the KEFIS equivalent of South Africa, they needed that I should have carried some papers, and nobody, by the way, had ever told me about this. And remember, I'm doing all these things in a haste, in a hurry. First, I need to recover from COVID, so I'm not paying much thought or attention to whatever I am doing. And I had a lot of push and pull at the airport. And the most amazing thing for me is that I was very focused. I have to do export. And one of the things that I did was to really show and prove that I'm a woman who wants to do business. And we had an argument at the airport. And one of the things that I was told that was not even really good, because I don't think that's good language, that you know how you Kenyans are corrupt. You're here to do your corrupt things and you're one of them. And I had to prove that I am not corrupt. Eventually, I was allowed to go in to the exhibition with my products. And by that point, what I learned when I got in and I looked for the embassy is that it is very, very important for us as we plan to do business and we plan to export, get to know for example, now I'm Kenyan, get to know the Kenyan office or the embassy in the country of destination where you want to do business, because had I reached out to them, most of the challenges I faced, I would not have faced. And come the day of exhibition, everything was good. And there were a couple of things that I had not prepared for. One of the questions I got when I got to the exhibition is, where are you selling your product in Kenya? Honestly, I wasn't selling anywhere in Kenya. What is your production capacity? I had not thought of that. All I cared, I was exporting as a woman and I had to do it. Luckily, I had an export license. And some of the things that I also faced challenges. And I like the way Doreen has talked about the whole banking element. I assumed that when you travel, I don't know, I had a lot of assumption. One of them was, I didn't even know how I'm going to sell or talk about my product. And our product really had so much interest, not just from the South African, but even from other visitors who came from Egypt, from US and all over. And I could not transact with them because everybody had a card and they were asking the equivalent of a PDQ machine here. We need to swipe. I didn't have it. I didn't sell anything. I only sold to those who had cash, and others I even gave away. Anyway, those are lessons I learned in future. When you want to trade internationally, things you need to know well in advance. Now, like I have said, to this end, nobody told me that when you're doing this kind of a business, particularly for processing, the thing of having local presence is very, very important. Build trust and confidence with your product. I didn't know. And you know what? This information, you cannot find it online. And it was really a lesson for me, the whole thing, because notice here, what I want is to do export to South Africa. I got so many interested buyers, by the way, those that were introduced to me by the embassy, those who came to our stand. It is important to differentiate between the genuine and the fake buyers, because there are so many. And I remember I shared with somebody the other day how the genuine buyers actually never followed up with me because they figured out there were so many gaps that I had not filled. But those that were not genuine followed up with me, asking that I ship my product all the way to South Africa, and I wait for the payment to be made once they sell our products. And that is what I've learned today to be called something like open account. And I think it is quite an expensive affair for any MSME to try. So when we came back, I'm trying to summarize in the interest of time. Today, our products are all fully KEBS compliant. We have now been able to get into the local market. I have clarity on our production capacity, and that is why today I'm back now to the market. By the way, I never exported, to be honest, and I'm saying this so that any woman who is trying things and they have not worked out, it is good to, I don't want to say fail, but it is good to learn from your mistakes and don't be shy with it, because from these very beautiful stories we read on social media and we hear from people, there are a lot of lessons they have learned, only if people would be honest and share with you. So when I look back today, I feel I wasn't ready for export last year, but I am today. And you asked a question on what I would tell a woman who is desiring to do business in Kenya. Don't be afraid, first of all, but be ready to take a long journey. It may be a bit lonely, a bit bumpy, and to take care of that, join an association. Be in an association where you share. There's a lot of shared experience, and you'll find people who are willing to share that with you. And for the case of us who are in processing, please don't do it if you're not an expert, because that is where things go wrong, where you are called upon, show up and show off whatever you've got. I've just showed you our product. I can show you again. I'm very proud of what we are doing. Familiarize yourself with the country where you desire to export, so that you can get the support that you need. Surround yourself with wise men and not friends. And don't get me wrong, friends are good, but in business, be wise. And what I've also found out is that look for people who have been in business and it has not worked, or they have had challenges there, that you're able to get from them genuine experiences and things that you can try not to repeat, because there will be moments where things will go wrong. And finally, believe in yourself, and above all, trust in God. And what, in summary, I have seen, and I could tell anyone who want to try this, it comes from the book of Proverbs, 14 verse 15. It says that the simple believe anything, but the prudent give thoughts to their steps. Whatever you plan to do as a woman or as somebody in entrepreneur, just give it some thoughts on how you want to do it. That's our journey. I've tried as much as I can, Rehema, to summarize it. There's a lot that I have skipped, but I hope it gives somebody confidence that you can actually do it. We are not yet there. We have not even started exporting, but we have learned from our lessons. So we are coming back to export bigger and better. And just even to say, by the way, we also have the fresh asparagus, which is also we are selling locally, and we are also looking for the export market for it. So thank you so much.
Oh, Yamani, you know, when you're hosting a session and you're sitting back with us, I think beyond grace, I think it's the humility, the reminder that it's a journey. When you said asparagus, and I'm like, that crop takes a long time. You can get a cow faster than you can get asparagus ready for market. And I think it's that kind of patience, that pivoting of where you were at, saying it doesn't work, that honesty around it's a time that has never existed before, where opportunities for women are abundant. Let's be very honest about that. So the opportunity, we've also been invited to trade fairs and global markets. That ability to say, oh, some of these things we're not quite ready for, I think allows us to pace ourselves. And I think you were saying yesterday that I'm not going to lie, I wish I'd known some of these things before. And whilst it was great to be exposed, I wasn't ready. And I think you are echoing the words of the Flora, of saying that, you know, take advantage of the networks that you have. South African Women in Business identify the Kenyan Women Business Associations. Kenyan Women in Business identify South African Women in Business Associations. Let's make it a lot easier, because those are the places where we can aggregate the kind of information. And I think if I go to some of the questions and Q&A that's been shared in today's chat, that were framed through, and I'm conscious that time has gone, so I'm going to take up the Flora's suggestion for us to have a WhatsApp chat group, so that some of these conversations can continue. But some of the things that were coming up that were asked for by of Zanele was how consultants supporting inbound and outbound trade can be used or support in aggregating. I think it's precisely that, creating the platforms where we first of all are having these conversations, and second of all are leveraging the outcomes of these conversations more constructively. I see Zanele's hand is up. I'm going to afford you the opportunity for last words before I respect everybody's time that has been allocated, and I acknowledge the richness of the engagement and the desire to continue conversing. Zanele, yes.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you are going to give us moments to speak, but I think just because you raised the question, I'm trying to put myself on. Technology is failing me. But I think to Bernice, I think, who asked the question. If there's an opportunity to re-listen to this presentation, because as I read your question, and I know Bernice, we've actually met in different platforms, and I know the challenges that she's struggling with, because number one, she's competing with the likes of embassies to provide the information. She's also competing with the likes of chambers. I think this presentation today gave you so much value. One of the low-hanging fruit, I think, for someone who's a consultant, I know that the USP that you have is the knowledge base, but I think in terms of being practical, the last speaker talked about something that we have observed, I think both ourselves and Standard Bank, the ability to actually provide verified buyers. That will take you to leaps and bounds, because you can provide that service not just to the business people themselves, but to the actual chambers who then do these business delegations, these trade missions as a low-hanging fruit. And then when someone then gets to understand the value proposition that you have, you can then offer them the suite of offerings that would be part of your consultancy. But I think the low-hanging fruit for you would be the ability to match make the right buyer, a verified buyer, verified buyer and verified supplier. I just thought it was important to mention that. I'll go off and we'll continue the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm acknowledging the points that have been raised on the platform. Some of them reflections, some of them around the questions being asked. I see that even Doreen has answered a question around borderless banking. So I think it really is, it's been informative in the sense that we've gained insights from technical experts, we've gained insights from practical practitioners in the field of as entrepreneurs in terms of what it is. There's also invitation that is out there to touch base with the likes of Melvin T. And I think that, you know, we will be taking up the call or the invitation for us to set up a WhatsApp chat group that people can participate on. We know they get noisy, but they're also highly informative and create the pathway to doing something beyond this. Hopefully we are looking that it will end up in a trade mission, who knows, but it's driven by us and it's driven by more information and a lot more practical. Like to invite Lebo back on screen. I know she's also been in the background, but really the work that we do at Womanomics Africa is based on what we see in the markets from the conversations we have the privilege of being a part of. And as I give my vote of thanks to all participants, short notice, came on board, made this practical, giving us, Lebo and I always say, we want to do the stuff that energizes us. And I know we're going to come up from here and say, this is it. This is exactly what is not just missing, but where we can make our mark. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Lebo to say her last words. From me as the host, what an amazing session. Looking forward to more and looking forward to you signing in and having more. Lebo, last words from you, please.
Hello, everyone. Gosh, right at the end. I don't know what more to add. I think it's when Rehema and I started Womanomics a few years ago, actually, the idea was to make sure that women are not on the periphery of what is identified as a great opportunity on the continent, which is intra-Africa trade. And for us was to say, how do we make sure that women are not on the periphery, but actually in some parts begin to chart what that needs to look like. And so today's conversation has been really encouraging around the opportunities, around what women are doing, around what women can do. And I think it's the first of, this is our This is our second series on the AFCFTA series. We had one, we started one in COVID, as Rehema said, and now we're really looking at country focus and the opportunities, particularly practical. So one of the biggest things that Rehema and I say is that from a value adding perspective, we want to make sure that people that come into the spaces that we curate leave better than they were when they came in. And so the ability for it to be practical, to be insightful, for everybody on this call to take away at least one thing that they're going to do differently or that they're going to engage with, etc., is very important to us. So we're very excited. Thank you very much for those that brought the insights. Thank you for the ambassador who I know curated on the other side and brought everybody, particularly from the Kenyan side, to come and give their insights here. Thank you to our partners from the South African government, the DTIC, who have been on this journey with us since inception, and all the contributors that came through today. It really has been a wealth of information. We really try not to make it too theoretical. We try and make sure that it's practical. So we appreciate the stories of the women. Your stories are really inspiring even to us. So we started Womanomics as a not-for-profit, and out of that we came up with a company called Oya Foods, which is really around for us strategy in action, because we're always talking about women needing to be part of the trade conversation, women needing to be part of resilient value chains in key industries on the continent, and you can't talk growth on the continent without talking agriculture. And so when you talk about your journeys and where you're going, we're so inspired, we're so excited. And so we're looking forward to continuing the conversation. It's the first of many. As Rehema said, we will figure out how to make sure that we respect everybody's desire to be part of a collective group and make sure that we keep the conversation beyond this channel going. But also, I think just keep on sharing the insights. I think the power of sharing, the power of real stories is very important, because sometimes I think we gloss over what the journey actually takes. And I think it's important that we can share the real story. So thank you very much. I've been in the background most of it today, but it's really been great to listen, to get affirmation of some of the things that we have been working on, but also to get the color sometimes that you don't have sometimes when you read some of these things. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you for your time. Sorry for going over. We will share everything with you. Thank you to Christine, also in the background. So she's logged on as Womanomics. A lot of you have been engaging with her. We haven't acknowledged her, but she's the program manager for the work that we do. So we acknowledge everybody's time, everybody's insights. Asante sana. There will be very many more. Thank you.
Tell me this, which part of the world has seen its number of democracies increase nearly 8-fold in just 2 decades? Eastern Europe? No, it is Africa. Which continent has 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world? Asia? No, it's Africa.
Africa is the biggest investment frontier.
A historic deal has been signed in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. Many African heads of state have agreed on a treaty that aims to increase intra-African trade to 24% from 16% of the continent's total. This would make the region the largest free trade area in the world.
We can only gain dynamic comparative advantage if we trade more with ourselves. If we don't create the investments and the infrastructure that will make it possible for us to begin to produce the light manufacturers that China will soon stop producing, we will find ourselves looking for other countries to start exporting the same thing to us.
Africa has a lot of huge potentials. I say, this is the land, young people. This is a land with great resources of inspiring people. I mean, these people are good.
When I look at the issue of women, and Africa went through structural adjustment programs, and many people lost jobs and so on. It's actually the women that kept the economies of Africa actually going. Most of the businesses you find in Africa today, 80–90% of them are small and medium-sized enterprises. They're actually owned by women. I think we've got to change the way financial markets work. We've got to trust women businesses better. We have to support them with technical assistance, but we have to let them grow. Because when Africa gets the issue of women right, it will finally have gotten its development right.